Hi and welcome back to 50 Cents. It's been a while and there are two really good reasons why, and I'll share them at the end of this video. But thank you to everybody who's been subscribing. It's been brilliant to see the numbers go up and I really do appreciate you all being here. I've been asked if I could explain my HRT journey, what I've been on and how long it took to get settled. And at first I thought, oh, no one's going to be interested in that. But actually, I am your Josephine blogs out on the street. So what happens to me has probably happened to a lot of other people as well. And I think it's really important that we share these stories. Because at the moment, the narrative seems to be going towards, oh, isn't it wonderful to get HRT and you're cured overnight? When a lot of people contact me and say, actually, I've been having a really hard time and I don't know if this is the right HRT for me or not. It's a bit complicated, so I hope you've got a cup of tea and you're ready. Getting HRT in the first place was surprisingly easy. My doctor was very, very open to it. He was like, yeah, it sounds like you need HRT, quite happy to give it to you. But the first one he gave me were tablets called Femoston. Now I know people who are on it and have a great time. I didn't. It cured the hot flushes and some of the physical symptoms I've been having, but the psychological symptoms, the depression and the anxiety was still there. And I felt worse on it a lot of the time. So I give it 3 months because that's how long they say you should give it for all of the hormones to settle down into your body. And I went back to the doctor, and of course being the NHS, you're very, very lucky if you can see the same doctor twice. So I got a locum who just said, well, I think actually you're just depressed rather than menopausal. So he put me on antidepressants. A lot of women tell me, oh yes, the sertraline 50 milligrams, been on that. Because it seems to be a lot of doctors' answers to menopause depression. And yes, we can get depressed and we can get anxious, but it's not because of the serotonin in our brains, it's because of the estrogen in our bodies. But anyway, I was on the antidepressants for a while and they were doing nothing. Instead of feeling up and down, I was just feeling meh. I was tired, I had no energy, I just felt awful. I went back to see the doctor and they suggested that I up the antidepressants and had a stronger dose. And I was saying to them, I don't think antidepressants are what's right for me. And they basically didn't listen. It was at this time, I was on Twitter and I saw a call out from the BBC wanting people to go on a programme about HRT. And you had to send off an email. My goodness, did I send off an email? I just detailed everything that I'd been going through. The hair loss, the itchy skin, the mood swings, the suicidal ideation, everything. And I got selected to go on this programme. The programme was BBC Health Truth or Scare. And I was incredibly lucky because I got to speak to Mr. Haitham Hamoda, who at the time was deputy chair, or as a vice chairman, of the British Menopause Society. He basically gave me a consultation during the programme. And he allayed a lot of the fears I'd had because my sister had breast cancer. So while I was taking the Femoston, that was always at the back of my head with those old scares from the 2000 era of HRT and breast cancer. But Mr. Hamoda told me that because the breast cancer wasn't genetic with my sister, then there was no reason why I shouldn't take HRT in his opinion. Of course, we had the full consultation. It's not as easy as that. But yeah, he said, you need some sort of estrogen gel, you need progesterone tablets, and he also suggested testosterone. I came out and I was buzzing. I was literally like, because here was an answer. I felt somebody had listened to me and they knew what to do. They weren't looking it up in a little book like the doctor had to see what HRT I should be given. He was there, he knew it. So I went back to my GP, saw a lady GP and explained everything. And she says, okay, we'll test your testosterone. And then she said, but I've never heard of an estrogen gel and tablets, but we'll give you patches. They're just as good. So I was like, well, okay, it's not what he suggested, but if that's what you're saying I have, then fine. She put me on, now I've been on a few, so forgive me if this isn't totally correct, but I knew it was an Evorel. And I'm pretty sure it was Evorel 25. When I looked at the box, I thought, yeah, I've had you in my kitchen. I've had you in my bathroom cupboard for definite. In the meantime, the doctor that I'm actually registered with phoned me up and he said, well, the testosterone, you know, some of these specialists have some left field ideas. We don't give out testosterone. And that was it. I felt very silly for ever having asked for it. But at least I had my patches, and for the first month, everything was fine. Then about 6 weeks in, I started feeling really bad again. And then 4 weeks after that, I started feeling even worse. And 4 weeks after that, and I realised that it was when the patches changed from estrogen to giving me progesterone as well. Every time I went on the progesterone, I started feeling really terrible. And we are talking really, really terrible again. We are black dog completely, bottom of the barrel, seeing no point to life anymore. I went back to the GP, explained how I felt. At the time, I didn't know about PMDD or progesterone sensitivity, but I knew it was connected. I explained about this and asked for a change of HRT. So she put me onto Evorel Sequi. And I can remember saying, but is this not just the same? Will I not just have progesterone in 2 weeks' time? And she basically said, well, this is HRT, that's what it is. I went away and tried it, and yes, it started all over again. Every 4 weeks that I started on the progesterone, so that cycle completely just wiped me out. I felt terrible. I went back, I explained, and my original doctor, so the one I'm registered with, said, okay, but we're having trouble with HRT at the minute. There's shortages. So he phoned up the pharmacist and he started reading out different names of HRT that were available. And eventually he said Femseven. And she went, yes, we have that one. And I felt like shouting the house, like in bingo, like we have HRT that I can be on. The doctor said to me, run, don't walk, run down to the pharmacist and get your HRT because by the time you get there, it might be gone. I went as soon as I left the doctor's, went to the pharmacy next door. And she says, oh, we've got a month's worth in, but I will get you some more, I promise. And that was the end of 2019. I'm still waiting for the rest of that prescription to be fulfilled. Femseven just vanished. I ran out in February and I went back to my GP surgery. I mean, I was there so many times and I saw this lovely, lovely GP I'd never seen before. I went in and I just started crying and I said, just give me antidepressants because I can't take being like this anymore. I'd rather feel meh than feel like this. And he said, take me back to the beginning. And he sat and he listened and he said, let's try you on Oestrogel and we'll try a Coil to give you your progesterone. It was like Dr. Hamoda all over again. I was so happy. Now this was February 2020. A month later, we were in lockdown. There was no chance of a Coil fitting anytime soon. So I called up the doctor and we discussed it and I was put on Evorel Conti and I said, I'm scared of the progesterone because I know how bad it can take me. So I agreed to go on an antidepressant as well, purely to counteract the way progesterone makes me feel. Only thing is, Evorel Conti is when you have actually gone through the menopause. So menopause itself is 1 day, it is 12 months after your last period. But because of HRT and because of various things, I didn't know when my last period was. But at the time, I was 54, so the chances were I'd been through it. So Evorel Conti made logical sense to the doctor. But after a while, I started having some spotting and bleeding. And it turns out that my right ovary was still alive and happy, as the woman on the scan said. Left one, completely asleep. Right one, kicking out those little eggs every now and then. So I was still perimenopausal at that age. I had to come off the Evorel Conti, which was a shame because for the first time I was starting to feel okay on it. I was feeling good and normal and happy. So then I was back on the phone to the doctor and I got this young girl and I said, I want Oestrogel and Utrogestan tablets. And she said, I've never, ever prescribed this. And I could hear her tapping away at a computer as she looked it up. But by the end of it, I had that magic prescription. It was only 3 years after Mr. Hamoda had first said, this is what you need, but finally I had it. A lot of people still have problems with Utrogestan. I've had people write to me, one said, I call it Utrogestan because it makes me crazy. It kind of worked for me. I felt all right, but every now and then I would still have a bad time. But I was okay with that, to be honest. And it was when I went for a smear test and I was chatting to the nurse and she said, just get the coil. And I was like, well, you know, it's okay. It's just every once in a while I feel a bit down. And she was like, but you shouldn't even feel that way. If you get the coil, the chances are you'll feel fine all the time. And so that's what happened. I had the coil fitted, oh my goodness, nearly 2 years ago now. It hasn't been easy. It took a long time for it to settle down. Thankfully, I know the wonderful Dr. Nighat Arif. If you're not following her on TikTok, please do, because she's wonderful. And so I was chatting to her about menopause campaigning and she was able to give me a little bit of, not medical advice, but she was able to tell me, you know, it does take a long time to settle down, so just wait, see it through, keep in touch with your GP, you know, just to give me that bit of reassurance. And I was still feeling bad. If you've seen my video from last September, you'll see then that I had decided to give up HRT. But since then, it's sort of settled down. Menopause comes at a time in your life when you're really, really busy. And I had a lot of other things going on at the same time, which were adding to the stress. And I didn't really give them enough credit for how stressful they were making me feel. Credit sounds wrong because that's a positive. I hadn't taken into account how they made me feel. And some of that stress is now lifted for various reasons, and that has helped quite a lot. I get the odd day, and that's because I think that right ovary is still doing it, because I do feel as if I'm in that stage just before your period, you know, when you sort of feel a little funny and a little strange and your body feels funny, but it's few and far between. So hopefully Mr. Righty is getting out of here, because yeah, it's not Mr. Right anymore. I wanted to go from being Mr. Right to Mr. Right off. I want it over and finished. When I first thought about this, I was just going to go through all the different HRTs I'd been on and explain how I felt with them. But then actually, it is the story of how I got here. 5 years of trying to get the right HRT. Now, let's take off a 1.5 years that I've been on the Mirena Coil. And I know that COVID put a spanner in the works, but it was still a long time fighting. You get the celebs where they say, oh yes, I got put on HRT and everything was fine and it worked out lovely straight away. Well, yeah, that's great if you've got the means and the money to go to a Harley Street gynecologist, or if you have somebody on tap because you're making a TV program about it. The rest of us are having to fight, and we shouldn't have to fight for something that's going to happen to 51% of the population. It's time the NHS sat down and did some joined up thinking about this, because I get women all the time writing to me saying they can't get to see the GP for HRT, or the doctor doesn't understand HRT, or the doctor wants to give them antidepressants or beta blockers, or the doctor just isn't listening, or the doctor doesn't think HRT is the right thing to do for menopause. And then you get the ones like me who struggle to find the right menopause, and so they feel they've done something wrong because they're saying, I'm taking it, I put the patch on, and the woman in the Facebook group said she felt better overnight, and it's been 2 months now and I'm feeling terrible. I guess what I'm trying to say is, in the minute, because there is so much financially in menopause, because it's not dealt with properly by the NHS, then HRT is being seen like a wonder drug, and if you have to go private to pay for it, go private to pay for it, because it'll save you overnight. And the truth is, it doesn't. It is a medication, and it is like every medication. For some people it works great straight away. For others it takes time, and you have to tweak it and try a little more of this and a little less of this, and it's a hard balance to get for some people. And we need to have honest and realistic discussions about it. So I'd like to know, how did HRT affect you? Were you one of these people who just overnight started feeling wonderful? Or did it take a while? Did you have to change and swap it? Please let me and everybody else know in the comments below, because we need to hear everybody's story. We need to hear the good and the bad so that women can be prepared. I'd love to hear from you. Now, where I've been, well, first of all, we've been doing some house renovations, and also this happened.
And I do hereby declare that Mel Dawkins and Elizabeth Carr-Ellis are duly elected.
Yeah, I stood for the local council and got elected. Don't worry, this isn't going to become a politics channel, although I do get ranty when I start about menopause, I'm afraid. If you'd like to know any more about either of these things that I've been doing, let me know in the comments below. Or if there's something you'd like me to discuss, leave a comment below as well. I look forward to reading your comments, and I'll see you next time.